someone told you that a convicted criminal faked his death, moved to another country, assumed a new name, married, got COVID, and was then caught because of his tattoos and fingerprints? This is the case of Nicholas Alahverdian, also known as Nicholas Rossi, a former child welfare advocate turned fugitive, a man who vanished from the United States only to resurface in a hospital bed in Scotland, pretending to be someone else. He claimed to be an Irish orphan. The reality? He was running from rape charges, a dark past, and justice. This is the still unfolding story of the man who faked his death. You're watching True Crime Exposed. If you're new here, subscribe and hit the bell. These are the real stories. They need to be told. Nicholas Alahverdian wasn't always a fugitive. In fact, for years he was in the public eye. As a vocal critic of Rhode Island's child welfare system, he claimed to be a survivor of abuse in state custody. He spoke at legislative hearings, filed lawsuits, and gave impassioned interviews about reforming child services. But behind the curtain, a different picture was emerging. Court records showed a trail of disturbing allegations: financial misconduct, fraud, and worst of all, sexual assault. In Utah, police had DNA evidence linking him to a 2008 rape. The case was reopened in 2017. Investigators zeroed in, but just when they were ready to move, Nicholas disappeared. In early 2020, news broke that Nicholas Alahverdian had died. The cause? Non-Hodgkin lymphoma. A tearful obituary claimed he passed away, surrounded by family and loved ones. Media outlets published tributes. Lawmakers who had once worked with him expressed condolences. But some things didn't add up. There was no hospital record, no death certificate, no funeral. And oddly, the obituary sounded like Nicholas himself had written it. Investigators raised eyebrows. Prosecutors in Utah, still pursuing the rape case, weren't convinced. They believed Alahverdian was alive and running. In December 2021, halfway across the world in Glasgow, Scotland, a man named Arthur Knight was hospitalized with COVID-19. He claimed to be an Irish-born academic with no criminal record, but hospital staff noticed something strange. Tattoos on his arms. Tattoos that matched FBI records. Police were called. Fingerprints were taken, and DNA sealed the case. Arthur Knight was Nicholas Alahverdian, alive, breathing, and lying. When confronted, he denied everything. He said the FBI had the wrong man. He accused authorities of mistaken identity, conspiracy, and persecution. But the evidence was undeniable. His past had finally caught up with him. What followed was a bizarre legal battle in the UK. Nicholas fought tooth and nail to avoid extradition to the US. In court, he came in a wheelchair. He wore an oxygen mask. He spoke with an affected English accent. He told the judge he was too ill to travel. He even claimed he couldn't walk until CCTV footage showed him walking unassisted. British prosecutors called his performance an act. The judge agreed. In 2023, the Edinburgh Sheriff Court ruled that Arthur Knight was indeed Nicholas Rossi, the man who faked his death. In early 2024, he was extradited back to the US to face the charges he had been dodging for over a decade. Now the key update, the key development regarding the case. So what is Nicholas Alahverdian, aka Nicholas Rossi, really facing? In Utah, he's charged with rape and forcible sexual abuse, stemming from a 2008 case involving a woman who says she was assaulted after meeting him on MySpace. But that's only part of the story. As investigators dug deeper, more women came forward. And these weren't just strangers. They were his former wives. Nicholas Rossi has reportedly been married 3 times. His first marriage on November 5, 2010, was to a woman from Pawtucket, Rhode Island. She remains anonymous today, but what's known is chilling. Within 6 months of the wedding, she filed for divorce, citing a toxic and controlling nature. She requested a restraining order, claiming he harassed her even after the legal separation. It didn't end there. He violated that restraining order, continuing the cycle of manipulation and threat. In October 2015, he married again, this time to Catherine Heckendorn, whom he reportedly met in a singles group of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. That marriage didn't last either. Just 7 months in, Catherine filed for divorce, also requesting a temporary restraining order due to threatening behavior. Rossi violated that order as well, racking up yet another criminal case. But it's the third marriage that takes the story into darker and more surreal territory. In 2020, shortly before faking his death, Nicholas married Miranda Louisa Knight, a native of Bristol, England. Soon after, a woman calling herself his widow, Louise, publicly mourned his death, claiming he had been cremated. She refused to provide a death certificate. Investigators and reporters began to suspect that Louise was none other than Miranda, now playing the role of grieving widow as part of the cover-up. While this has never been formally confirmed, Miranda has been a vocal supporter of Nicholas well into 2024. She refused to believe he was capable of anything bad and stood by his claims that he was a victim of mistaken identity, even as mounting evidence proved otherwise. Investigative journalist Jane McSorley has obtained a recording of one of the calls, and the voice is remarkably similar to that of Miranda Knight. Ms. McSorley was actually invited to interview Mr. and Mrs. Knight over dinner after his initial arrest in Scotland. She said she initially found them very pleasant and charming and wondered if police might have made a mistake, before she then started having doubts. Journalist Jane McSorley said there was a lot about his story that didn't add up for me. I'm Irish, and his story of a childhood in Irish orphanages was just incredibly vague. And his accent didn't strike me as authentic either, she said. So I thought from pretty early on that he was Nicholas Rossi, but I wasn't sure whether his wife Miranda was in on it or not. I thought maybe she was, but she also seemed really genuine. Early on in the investigation, Miss McSorley asked Mrs. Knight whether she had made the calls of widow Louise, but Mrs. Knight said the suggestion was laughable. When Ms. McSorley later obtained a recording of a call made by Louise, she was struck by the similarity of the voice to that of Mrs. Knight. Ms. McSorley said everyone I spoke to in the U.S. thought it was Nicholas Rossi using a voice-changing app, but eventually my producer and I got hold of a recording of one of the calls, and we thought straight away it sounds incredibly like Miranda, she said. The recording was played to Mrs. Knight, who has always maintained she has no reason to suspect her husband really is Mr. Rossi, but she declined to comment. Whether Miranda has responded to his eventual courtroom admission that he is, in fact, Nicholas Rossi, is unknown, but her loyalty throughout the extradition fight was unwavering. Meanwhile, his second ex-wife, Catherine, has reportedly rebuilt her life. She now lives in Ohio, is happily remarried, and has a child. As for his first wife, she has long disassociated from him, and her current whereabouts remain private. These revelations add disturbing weight to Rossi's public persona. He wasn't just running from rape charges or fraud allegations. He left behind a trail of emotional and legal wreckage, affecting the lives of multiple women who crossed paths with him. As of 2025, Nicholas Alahverdian is in U.S. custody, awaiting trial set to begin on April 22, 2025. His legal team continues to push delays and claim his identity was stolen. But the courts are moving forward. Prosecutors say the evidence is overwhelming, and the victims, after years of silence, are ready to testify. If convicted, Nicholas faces life in prison. The case is far from over, and it may reveal even more twists as trial proceedings unfold. A child advocate turned fugitive, a staged death, an international manhunt. Nicholas Alahverdian's story is one of deception, manipulation, and, ultimately, accountability. At True Crime Exposed, we'll be following every update as this case develops. If you want to stay informed on real cases with real consequences, hit subscribe and let us know in the comments. Do you think Nicholas will be convicted, or is there more to this story than we know? I'm your host. This was The Man Who Faked His Death, the story of Nicholas Alahverdian.